Good afternoon, friends. I am the unemployed man in the logo in the front of this video. This is my first time ever making one of these. I became unemployed last Friday and went through a few days where it was very depressing and I was just not getting anything done, and I finally thought it might be a good idea to try this. It's kind of a strength of mine, not the video broadcasting part, but the talking about movies and shit part. When I was a kid, my family would invite me and my mom to things, and they would come and get me and take me and show me around to all their friends. It's like, look at this freaking guy. He's 8 years old, but he knows everything about movies, which isn't true. But at the time, I guess it was impressive considering my age, and that's just kind of been my whole life. So I figured, well, I have all this free time. I'd use this, I'd try this. Maybe it would be kind of therapeutic for me, and I would see what happens. I've long been very much into horror movies, primarily, and today it's one of my favorites I decided to watch. I haven't seen it in a long time. It's called Tales from the Crypt presents Demon Knight, and I have very fond memories of it. I've seen it many times, but I've never really looked at it, and I thought I'd give it a try today. So I know what to expect. Lots of blood and gore and nudity and swearing and lots of great stuff. And I'll come back and do the next part of this after I get done watching it, because that's how it works. So yeah, I'll see you then. Shocking no one, that was every bit as fun as I remembered it being. All the violence and titties and everything a growing boy, rural North Carolina in the 90s could possibly need. Tales from the Crypt has long been, I've long been a big fan of it. I've been through the series multiple times. I'm going to point out again, this is the first time I've ever done this, so it's going to be rough, and I'm going to ramble, and I don't intend on editing it. So I'll just try to get through it as smoothly as possible. So first thing, right away, that delightful Danny Elfman score will never not make me happy inside. We have a wonderful wraparound introductory scene for the movie. It's a movie being shot within a movie, and it's being directed by the Crypt Keeper. It's pretty great. It's got John Larroquette in it. I have this habit of assuming that everybody else doesn't know what I know, and I'm trying not to do that. But if you don't know John Larroquette, he was in Night Court. That's the thing he's known for the most. I think he's actually in it again right now. They brought the show back for a new season 30 years later, whatever it was. And he plays a zombified axe murderer. And of course, there's a naked woman immediately, a softcore porn actress, as I understand it, from the 90s, named Peggy Trentini, who was a very pleasant presence. I'm not complaining about that at all. And then let's see, I did notice there was some very shoddy mid-90s CGI, keeping the Crypt Keeper's head on top of a moving body. If you remember the show, it was very rare that you saw below his chest. There's obviously a reason for that. He's a friggin' puppet. So there is a section where they show the Crypt Keeper on arms and legs walking and moving around. It's great, but the CGI is very dated. Let's see, but there was a line that I forgot was in there that I heard that was I miss a whole lot. The Crypt Keeper says, "Fasten your drool cups and hold on to your vomit bags," which is a philosophy of 80s and 90s horror that we're sorely lacking in today's day and age. This movie stars a guy named William Sadler, who was in, I believe it was the very first episode of Tales from the Crypt, the show to air on HBO. But you probably know him from The Shawshank Redemption or Iron Man 3 or Die Hard 2, or he's in The Mist as well. He's a very well-known, very respected character actor. And the first thing that that clues me in, or should clue anyone in, to how 90s this movie is the addition of a song called "Hey Man, Nice Shot" by a band called Filter. Some of you may still be old enough to have heard it. Filter is a band that I'm a big fan of. The lead singer is a guy named Richard Patrick, who was a founding member of Nine Inch Nails, another band that I'm a huge fan of. So very 90s right away. And it's considering what the song is famous for. Its addition to this movie's soundtrack does not surprise me at all. A lot of people thought had something to do with Kurt Cobain getting shot. The frontman has gone to deny that many times ever since. But it's a great start. Before we even get out of the credits, this movie has a number of people on as executive producers, very famous people. Walter Hill and David Hyler, who are both worked on Alien. And then Richard Donner is on there, who made Superman, the Lethal Weapon movies. Joel Silver, not a director, but just a very well-known producer, kind of as I understand, a real piece of shit, but he's on there. And then Robert Zemeckis, who made Roger Rabbit, or Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and the Back to the Future movies, of course. And Robert Zemeckis, his addition is interesting because one of the characters in the movie is played by the actor who voiced Roger Rabbit, and apparently dressed like Roger Rabbit on the set while they were making the movie. It's really cool. The director is this guy Ernest Dickerson, who had a pretty good run in the mid-90s. He did this movie Juice with Tupac, and then another movie called Surviving the Game, which I saw maybe once or twice as a kid, and then Bulletproof, which I went through a very unfortunate period in the late 90s watching it over and over and over again. It's an Adam Sandler movie. He's partnered with Damon Wayans in a very Lethal Weapon 1 style buddy comedy. So there's a big, movie starts out as a big car crash, and it's not super obvious. I respect the movie for this. It's not super obvious which of the two main guys is the villain. It's not 100% certain if Bill Sadler is the good guy or not, because from the looks of this first scene on the road, he looks just as much a ne'er-do-well as old Billy Zane does. So had anyone not seen any of the trailers for this movie, they would maybe not know who the bad guy was right away, and I respect that. I forgot how early on in the movie Thomas Hayden Church shows up in. He's several years after this, he'd go on to be nominated for an Academy Award, Best Supporting Actor for the movie Sideways, and he was the Sandman in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3. That was very cool. He's also in a movie that I love called Killer Joe, where he's hilarious. That's I think it was NC-17, so again, a lot of you might not have seen it. Let's see, the cast is positively stacked with underappreciated character actors. Probably my favorite one is this gal CCH Pounder. That's this lady that's been just like in everything, certainly every TV show, every cop show ever, countless movies. One of my favorite character actresses on the planet. Then of course Bill Sadler, who we've already talked about. Billy Zane is easily the best part of the movie. The best performance is given by him. Dick Miller is a fellow that has showed up. Again, his career goes back decades and decades. He shows up in every movie directed by Joe Dante, who did Gremlins 2. Let's see, and yes, Charles Fleischer shows up, who is known the most for being the voice of Roger Rabbit. And then the main female character is played by Jada Pinkett, who I had no problem with at this time. And this is actually one of two movies where I kind of like the character she's playing. And then after that, I didn't care about any of her movies, and I definitely less than care about her now, given all the shit that's happened over the last couple of years she was involved in. One of the actors is this guy, Gary Farmer, who is often, he's a Native American actor, and he often portrays that in the movies that he's in. He's on a show actually right now called Reservation Dogs, which I absolutely love, and if you've never seen it, you should go and watch it immediately. I think it's only 3 seasons. It's on its last season. It's not that long. The shorter episodes, it's really, really good writing. It's fantastic. The movie is dark as shit. Like, there's no ounce of daylight or anything. Even the light that comes through the windows feels unnatural. It's just that this is not there are very few moments of levity in this movie in terms of cinematography and photography. The thunder and lightning is consistent throughout the runtime. Let's see, it takes place at the creepiest ass looking model of a motel that I've ever seen. Apparently, according to the movie, the motel used to be a church, and it actually retains many of the stained glass windows in it from when it was a church, which I thought was a very nice touch. Let's see, and also given the what direction the plot goes later on, that this building used to be a church becomes very fitting. If you've ever watched it, hopefully you know what I'm talking about. So we find out right away that the Roger Rabbit character is a kind of a pathetic piece of shit. He's simping out over this. One of the characters is a prostitute, and he's a very big fan of hers, and he's always up her ass, and it's very nowadays that guy would be a simp. I don't like using today's words. I'm getting kind of old, but that's exactly what he is. Oh yeah, and of course, by the way, also this guy that is a very pathetic loser was also planning to blow up a post office with a vest made of grenades, because of course he is. Um, there's a scene that takes place at a dinner table with a number of the characters sitting around talking. It's Bill Sadler and Jada Pinkett and CCH Pounder and Dick Miller are all sitting at a table. Bill Sadler has showed up looking for a place to stay for the night, and it's completely silly and meaningless, but it appears that he's eating what appears to be a fucking bowl of biscuit gravy and ketchup. I had never noticed that before, but there's no way I'll ever be able to just overlook that again. I don't know what the fuck he was eating. Let's see. Oh yeah, so now the cops show up in that first car crash scene in the beginning of the movie. Bill Sadler and Billy Zane, they both escape from the car crash, and then the cops show up. And then Billy Zane shows his face again and actually has some lines of dialogue. And then the policeman and Billy Zane they group together, and then they go to the motel together, because apparently that's the only building that exists in this town. So there you go. The cops arrive, and we're treated to this lovely scene. Oh shit. Thomas Hayden Church and his hooker girlfriend who lives at the motel have immediately, as soon as he got there, they went upstairs to her room and started having fun. And the cops are rounding everybody up in the building because they got questions for Bill Sadler and Billy Zane. And then, of course, they come upon Thomas Hayden Church and the hooker having exquisite sex in what is her room, I guess. And the line, the wonderful line that comes out of that is, "Oh God, my nipples are smoking," because it appears that she's got a car battery hooked onto his nipples. So good times for everybody. Also, Thomas Hayden Church might be the scummiest piece of shit character there's ever been in a movie in this film. Let's see. But yeah, so Billy Zane shows up, and then he gets face to face with Bill Sadler again, and then it becomes pretty apparent real fast that Billy Zane is the bad guy, because he puts his fist. He gets tired of talking to the cops, and he decides to just put his fist through the main cop's face, and he yanks off the cop's head and throws it at one of the other characters. And of course, because of course he did, he says, what did he say? He said, "Heads up," and then he threw the severed head at somebody else, which is great. Again, this is a lot of fun. I love this movie. Not because it's good, but it's just so much fun. But yeah, after that, Zane is expelled from the building, and then he's outside now, and he's losing his shit out of frustration. He takes off his cowboy hat and his jacket that he had on. He's saying all these crazy random cowboy phrases out of frustration. But that's about when the real fun begins in the movie. These demons that show up, we find out that Billy Zane is like a district manager of the local demon tribe. And as soon as the demons show up, you find out within a few minutes that you're supposed to go after their eyes to kill them. Their eyes are lit up like the weak spots on a video game villain. It's just so 90s, but again, I love it. Nothing I'm saying here is negative, because it's so good. But their green eyes, they light up, so of course that's what you're supposed to shoot at to destroy them. I noticed that the Bill Sadler, he carries around a key that is full of various dudes' blood throughout history. Each dude that has been charged with carrying the key, whenever they finally did die, they would pour their blood into this key-shaped bottle, and it becomes magical and becomes a weapon against the demons. And the effects, the way they use this in the movie, they pour out a little drop of blood in a doorway to block off that doorway from being used by a demon. Why the demons can't just punch through a wall. Don't ask questions now. Don't ask questions. Just enjoy yourself. But the blood effects, or the magical blood effects, are remarkably simple. It's just you look at the face of the character after they've poured it, and then just a red strobe slowly happens one time to let you know that the magic blood has done its thing, which is just a very effective, simple way of getting it done. Um, I am really, really into the ideas that come through in the flashbacks from this movie. You see a lot of flashbacks to what I imagine is Jesus on the cross, while another guy is down on the ground with the key in his hand. I guess the first one of these collector guys has the key in his hand, talking to a demon, and then he accidentally, the demon just happens to walk under a guy nailed to a cross, and later on in the movie they heavily imply that that guy was Jesus. So I really loved the idea of that and how epic the story could potentially become if they'd have really pushed on that. Second to that, though, there's another. You get to see a bit of the origin of William Sadler's character, which appears to take place in World War One, and just the way that it's shot and the way that it's done. I watched the shit out of a sequel or a prequel to this movie in that time too. Not that it'll ever happen, but I can dream. World War One is really underrepresented in terms of crazy ass horror movies, I think. So there's a scene where Jada Pinkett Smith's cat gets outside and then somehow makes it back inside, and then William Sadler is immediately like, "What the hell are you doing? What the fuck? You can't. The cat could be possessed just like a person can." And it's, I get tired of all this scapegoating of black cats in these movies. I mentioned before that Thomas Hayden Church is the scummiest piece of shit character I've ever seen, because he displays an extreme lack of foresight and forward thinking when dealing with the situation. He's constantly trying to team up with the demons and give them what they want so that he can get away and make his escape. Probably the stupidest character I've ever seen. He's like Fredo, except way, 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 way worse. I find it kind of interesting that the first person that Billy Zane chooses to psychologically go after is the hooker character. She's shown to be very sweet and kind and just a poor unfortunate soul. So of course he goes after her first and gets her immediately, and then shit goes off. There's a scene where CCH Pounder goes to attack one of the demons, because of course, and she gets her arm wrenched off in particularly epic fashions. Very excellent practical effects. Always try to represent for the practical effects as often as possible. This is not the first time I've seen or heard this, but the music, there's a scene where they're trying to escape from the building using some underground tunnels, but I could swear they're using Bernard Herrmann's Psycho theme, and I had that very same impression when I watched another movie called From Beyond, except that was much more blatant. This could just be all in my head, but there's a heavy Psycho theme in this particular scene of them in the underground tunnels under the hotel. We got a shitload of exposition here from William Sadler talking about it was in World War One in France and where he got the blood from, and you get to see they go back in time and you see him in the costume. It's really looks really it's not expensive. Clearly they didn't spend a lot of money on it, but they did a great job with what they had. Again, I love I can't say you love World War One. The aesthetic of horror movies in and about World War One, for some reason that does a lot for me. One of the characters is an old man named Uncle Willie, and if I was a betting man, I would say that the entire reason that Dick Miller is here, that again is often cast in Joe Dante movies. He was on Star Trek a couple of times. Just a very well-known face. He was in the Twilight Zone movie, in the section of the movie that Joe Dante created, of course. But if I was a betting man, I'd say that the entire reason that guy signed on to this movie was for his scene where he gets attacked psychologically by Billy Zane, because there are 30 pairs of Playboy Playmates titties from 1995 and 96, and he gets to drink the entire time throughout the movie. And then he gets killed, so nothing but fun, it sounds like to me. Unfortunately, after that, he gets his head yanked off, and then probably the biggest laugh in the movie for me is you see the head fall to the ground, the body's still kind of standing up against Bill Sadler, and then the eyes on the head open back up, and then the headless body just continues to beat the shit out of them. It's a whole lot of fun. Let's see. The most epic scene in the movie definitely has to go to CCH Pounder, I would say. She in a moment of self-sacrifice, she goes and gets that belt full of the grenades from the crazy mailman Roger Rabbit guy's room. And then she's already lost an arm. She's losing blood. She's run out of vodka. She drinks a lot of vodka in this movie. So she decides that she's going to go out in style. And she gets a great line, too. Her and the remaining cop decide to, make a last stand together to let everybody else get upstairs. And then she yanks off all the grenades and hollers out, "Supper time!" And then blows up about 30 demons. It's fantastic. It sucks, though, because it means no more CCH powder. So now we're down to the end. William Sadler has died from his wounds fighting old Uncle Willie. And it's just Jada Pinkett and Billy Zane now. And for whatever reason, if I could find one big fault with this movie, it's this. For whatever reason, Billy Zane decides that it's time he's decided that he's fallen in love with Jada Pinkett in the last 2 or 3 hours of this shit that's going on in this hotel. I have no idea where this came from, but he goes on to this, goes into this big long spiel about how much he loves Jada Pinkett and how much he should marry him and what he's going to do for her if she does. And of course she fucking says no. Of course she does. So I don't know what the point of that was. There's a moment where he's trying to convince her to marry him, to be with him, and he gets mad because she's not immediately into it because there's a tricky thing going on that he doesn't know about. And then he gets mad and throws her to the ground and he gets all pissed off, and then there's this effect where a giant gout of fire shoots out of the crotch of his pants. Just a big fire, giant fire dick, and the effects on it are very regrettable, but it didn't really bother me. It's just, I have to have something negative to say. But then after Jada Pinkett's tricky plan comes and happens, there's a big giant explosion where Billy Zane dies, and Jada Pinkett Smith should also have absolutely died in this explosion. This is the most, this shot of this explosion is so obvious that the building is a model, because of course it is, but it's really obvious here. And then after that, it just kind of cuts to the next day. Jada Pinkett is alive and well, and she's got the key, and it's full of new blood. And she gets on a bus, and of course she gets down and pours a little blood in the doorway of the bus immediately, and which I thought was a nice touch. And then the new demon that's there to chase her, this cool looking black guy, shows up and he's like, nah. He sees the shit on the stoop going in the bus immediately. He's like, oh, nah, I'll wait for the next bus. He wasted no time getting back down there to pick up Billy Zane's slack, but he looks way cooler. I wish I could have seen more of him. He did so much with one sentence. His look was really cool, and I would have loved to see a movie with him. Also, this movie has a post-credit scene way before Marvel made them a requirement for any kind of popular genre film, which I thought was cool. If I ever needed any evidence that Rotten Tomato scores didn't mean shit, it's this movie. This movie has a 37% score on Rotten Tomatoes, and I couldn't love it more. And I don't think it's as much about me having, just because I saw it as a kid and still love it now. I think it's legitimately a lot of fun. I'm not just looking at it through rose-colored glasses, as they say. But yeah, I might do this again next weekend. I don't know where I found the energy to do it this time. I've been thinking about it for a long time, but I never felt like I had anything interesting to say, and maybe I still don't, but I feel good that I did this and finished it. I hope this wasn't terribly boring or a huge waste of time. Maybe next weekend I'll do it again. It really did feel good to finish something I started for once. I can't remember the last time. I have been the unemployed man, and if those government checks keep coming, I'll see you again next time. Take care.